The restaurant was once again quiet, a reflection of a recurring pattern, 3 nights in a row. Standing alone in the kitchen, with only fresh ingredients and unlit stoves for company, I couldn't help but wonder where everything had gone so terribly wrong. Another booking canceled. Maya, my hostess, spoke softly. They said something about health concerns. I knew exactly who was behind these whispers. Margaret Chin, my mother-in-law. I'm Isabella Chin. 6 months ago, I opened Golden Lotus, a restaurant blending my Italian roots with Michael's Chinese heritage, a dream I spent 15 years working towards, pouring all my savings into it. At first, everything was perfect. Critics adored our innovative dishes, reservations were full for weeks ahead, and even Margaret, though silent, seemed to approve. But all of that shifted after Michael's father passed away. Isabella? Margaret's voice broke into my thoughts. I turned to find her standing in the doorway, perfectly put together in her expensive suit. Have you seen the posts online today? I had. Anonymous complaints about food poisoning, filthy conditions, rumors about expired ingredients, all surfacing just after Margaret's weekly brunch with her socialite friends. What do you want, Margaret? I asked, my voice steady. She entered the kitchen, casually running a perfectly manicured finger along the counter. I'm just checking on my son's investment, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. But it doesn't look good. Perhaps it's time to admit this little venture was a failure. Little venture? That's how she always referred to my restaurant, even though I had trained at prestigious culinary schools, worked alongside world-renowned chefs, and earned every bit of my reputation. The restaurant is doing fine, I replied. These rumors will blow over. She let out a cold laugh. Will they? People are quick to believe the worst, especially when it comes to foreign businesses. The way she said foreign ignited a fire inside me. After 8 years of marriage to Margaret, I would always be the Italian woman who wasn't good enough for her son. Is there something specific you need? I asked. Actually, yes. She retrieved a document from her designer bag. A buyer is interested in the property. The offer is generous. Michael thinks we should consider it. I froze. Michael thinks this is his restaurant. His name isn't even on the deed. He's your husband, she said, speaking as if explaining something to a child. What's yours is his. And really, Isabella, it might be better for you. You can return to catering small events, something more suited to your abilities. What Margaret didn't know was that I had recently uncovered a troubling piece of her past. Something that would make her regret trying to crush my dream. 3 weeks ago, while helping Michael clean out his father's study, we found a locked box hidden behind an old painting. Inside there were letters, photos, and documents that told a much darker story about Margaret. I'll consider your offer, I said, taking the paper without looking at it. She smiled, clearly thinking she had won. Don't take too long. Offers like these don't last, unlike the nasty rumors. Once she left, I went to my office and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a folder with copies of everything we'd found in that box. Proof that 30 years ago, Margaret had done exactly what she was doing to me, but with much more devastating results. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Mom says you're being unreasonable about the sale. Maybe we should talk. I stared at the empty dining room, remembering all the effort I had put into this place. The recipes, the dreams. Yes, I texted back. We definitely should talk. And you should bring your mother. There are some things you both need to see. Margaret thought she was destroying my restaurant. She had no idea she was about to learn a hard lesson about karma. What goes around comes around. And I had proof it was her turn. That night, I sat in my office, reviewing the contents of the folder once more. Old clippings, letters, and photographs, each piece revealing a hidden chapter of Margaret's story. 30 years ago, the Sun Palace, a beloved restaurant owned by the Wong family, stood where Golden Lotus now resides. According to the yellowed newspaper articles, it had been a city favorite until rumors about food poisoning and health code violations ruined it. Anonymous complaints, whispers, and allegations. Sound familiar, but the documents told a deeper story. Letters between Margaret and her friends, plotting to destroy the Wong family's business because their son, David, had dared to fall in love with Margaret's younger sister, Elizabeth, a romance Margaret deemed unacceptable. Another cancellation. Maya, she said, appearing in the doorway. This time, there's something different. The customer said they heard the rumors came from Margaret Chen. I smiled. My counter strategy was working. I had quietly reached out to some of Margaret's socialite friends, leaking carefully selected details about her past. The tide was beginning to turn. My phone buzzed again. Michael just picked up. Mom says we're on our way. She's furious, says people are spreading lies about her. I looked at the empty dining room and texted back, "No, they're spreading the truth." 20 minutes later, they arrived. Margaret stormed in first, her face twisted with fury. "What is going on?" she demanded. "My friends are spreading ridiculous things about me and the Sun Palace." Michael followed, looking bewildered. "What's happening, Isabella? What's the Sun Palace?" "Sit down," I said calmly. "It's time for a history lesson." I pulled out the first photograph. Margaret, young and smiling, standing outside the Sun Palace, arm in arm with a beautiful woman who looked strikingly similar to her. "Elizabeth, your aunt," I told Michael. "You've never met her because your mother made sure of that. Would you like to know why?" "That's enough," Margaret snapped, reaching for the photograph. But I was faster. "Elizabeth fell in love with David Wong." I continued, producing more documents. His family owned that restaurant. They were hardworking, respected, but not wealthy enough for Margaret's standards. Michael stared at the photo. "I didn't even know I had an aunt," he said, shocked. "Because your mother erased her," I said, spreading out the letters. "She destroyed the Wong family's restaurant using the exact same tactics she's using against me. Rumors, lies, whispers." I watched as Margaret's face drained of color, recognizing the handwriting, her own from 3 decades ago. "The restaurant didn't make it," I spoke gently. "The Wong family lost everything. And Elizabeth, she was sent away to avoid the scandal. But that's not the full story, is it, Margaret?" I pulled out the final piece of evidence, a marriage certificate. Elizabeth Wong and David Wong, married 2 days before the rumors spread. They ran off, I explained to Michael. And your mother couldn't bear that her sister defied her, so she ruined their lives. "It wasn't like that," Margaret objected, her voice quivering. "I was protecting our family's reputation. By destroying innocent people," I interrupted. "By cutting your sister off from everyone she loved. By concealing her existence from your own son." Michael picked up one of the letters and read it slowly. His expression darkened with every word. "Mom, how could you? It was 30 years ago," she dismissed. "That's ancient history." "Not for the Wong family," I responded. "Not for Elizabeth, and certainly not for me. Because you're doing it again, aren't you? Using the same methods to bring down another restaurant that doesn't meet your standards." I stood walking over to my office window. "But here's the difference, Margaret. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to lose it all, because unlike 30 years ago, this time I have proof. And actions have consequences." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening me?" "No," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm making a promise. Either you stop spreading rumors about Golden Lotus immediately, or every person in your social circle will find out what you did to your sister. Your flawless reputation. Gone. You wouldn't dare." I pulled out my phone, showing her the messages I'd already sent to a few key people in her network. Just enough to plant seeds of doubt, to stir up whispers. Her own tactics used against her. Try me. The silence was deafening. Margaret sat stiffly in her chair, gripping her designer purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. Michael had not looked away from the photo of his aunt. "There's more," I said quietly, opening my laptop. "I found Elizabeth." Margaret's head snapped up. "What?" "She's in San Francisco." I continued, turning the screen toward them to show a social media profile. "Still married to David. They have 3 children, your nieces and nephew, Michael. The youngest is studying culinary arts." Michael leaned in, eyes glued to the family photo. They had his smile, his mother's eyes, family he never knew existed. "I've been in touch with her," I said. She was shocked to hear from me, even more surprised to find that history was repeating itself. "You had no right," Margaret whispered. "No right?" I stood, my calm finally breaking. "Like you had no right to destroy my restaurant, to try and erase your sister from history, to hide an entire branch of the family from your son." "Isabella," Michael said softly, still staring at the photo. When did you discover all of this?" 3 weeks ago," I answered. "In your father's study. He kept everything, Margaret. Every letter, every news clipping. He knew what you did." I paused, letting it sink in. "He also kept in touch with Elizabeth. Birthday cards, photos. He never abandoned her the way you did." Margaret's face briefly crumpled before she regained her composure. "What do you want?" "Three things," I said, sitting back down. "First, you stop the rumors right now. Use your influence to put an end to them, as easily as you started them." She gave a stiff nod. "Second, you stay away from my restaurant. No interference, no suggestions, no trying to convince Michael to pressure me into selling." Another tight nod. "And third," I pulled out an envelope, "you're calling Elizabeth tonight, with us here. It's time the truth came out." "No," she said quickly. "I can't." "Mom," Michael interrupted, his voice firm. "Yes, you can. And you will." He picked up the phone from my desk and held it out to her. "I want to meet my aunt." Margaret stared at the phone as though it might bite her. For the first time, I saw past her perfect exterior to the frightened woman beneath, the one who had chosen pride over family, control over love, and had lived with those choices for 30 years. Slowly, her hand trembling slightly, she took the phone. The conversation was awkward at first. 30 years of silence isn't easy to break, but when Elizabeth heard Michael's voice, something magical happened. Stories began flowing. Memories, laughter, even tears. They spoke for hours about the past, the present, and the future. Margaret apologized, genuinely, finally. Elizabeth forgave her, not for Margaret's sake, but for her own peace. 2 weeks later, Golden Lotus was bustling again. The rumors vanished as quickly as they had appeared. But more importantly, fresh faces filled our tables. Elizabeth and David flew in from San Francisco with their children. The reunion was a private affair held after hours at my restaurant, watching Margaret meet her nieces and nephew for the first time. Seeing Michael connect with the aunt he never knew existed, I realized something profound. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about forcing them to face the truth and grow from it. Elizabeth's daughter Sarah, the culinary student, spent a week working in my kitchen. She had her father's talent and her mother's spirit. We discussed the possibility of her joining Golden Lotus after graduation, bringing the family's culinary traditions full circle. Margaret still visits the restaurant, but differently now. She sits quietly at a corner table, watching her family, all of her family, gather and grow. Sometimes I catch her eyeing me with what might be respect. Last week, she handed me a recipe, one passed down through generations from her mother. "Elizabeth always made it better than I did," she admitted. "Maybe you can do it justice." I added it to our menu, Chen family dumplings. They've become our most popular dish. A photo of young Margaret and Elizabeth now hangs in our entrance, next to pictures of my own family from Italy. A reminder that every family has its stories, its secrets, its wounds, and its healing. Golden Lotus has become more than just a restaurant. It's become a place of reconciliation, a second chance, a family in all its complicated glory. And Margaret? She's learning that sometimes losing control means gaining something far more valuable. Real relationships, honest love, and the peace that comes with finally letting go of pride. The other day, I overheard her telling one of her society friends, "That's my daughter-in-law's restaurant. The fusion of flavors is quite remarkable." Her voice held no bitterness, only pride. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes, it's showing someone a better way forward, even if that path starts with confronting the past. Elizabeth and David are moving back to the city next month. They're opening a small dim sum place just down the street. Margaret is helping them find the perfect spot. And me, I'm just the chef stirring the pot of change. One recipe, one truth, one family dinner at a time. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.